Right, okay, let me get organized. Share that. And then do this. Okay, I'll do that classic thing now. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to crack on really. And I've just put a note up there in the chat that I've written this up as a blog piece and it is online, published this morning, and people can follow a link there and read the fuller idea. So I'm just going to give a broad perspective on from what's been happening in the UK. I'm not going to dwell too much on the short-term impact. I thought Marta's diagram pretty much summed up the phases of depression and all that. What I'm going to focus on really is the university campus and placemaking and what that might mean for the future campus, because certainly, and you may be having these discussions elsewhere, we have the spectre of massive open online courses, MOOCs, which have millions of students. And the debate now is that this will replace the campus. They won't be a campus. So let's look at that. I mean, basically the purpose of this paper and the blog piece is to kind of look at the relationship between universities and place, and to think about how we might strengthen that connection. And just a bit of background, I'm from the Institute of Place Management. We're a professional body. We help people make places better. Hopefully no one wants to make them worse. I don't know. This is kind of what we do: place management, place marketing, place making, and tourism visiting. We couldn't think of a good word there. And we run our own journal, Journal Place Management and Development. And what's happened since last time we met is that we are now running the National High Streets Task Force for England. So involved in revitalising the high street or town centres across England. So as I say, a full version of the paper is out on the blog already, so you can read that after or during if you get bored. But this is where I want to crack on. I mean, the thing is, the problem with universities is that they've always had a problematical relationship to place. Certainly, you know, the traditional British universities, although they're synonymous with particular towns, they always stand accused of being disconnected from their local communities. So, you know, the Oxfords and Cambridges of the wood, and we use this phrase, the ivory tower, to refer to this closeted elite group of academics and students who don't really mix or get involved with what happens in a place. The thing is, the newer universities can be similarly criticised. In the post-war period, many new universities were planned. The old universities were redesigned to create these kind of modernist enclosed precincts. And here it is in reality, and this is what we made. And unfortunately in Manchester, this involved the mass clearances of people's homes, but let's not dwell on that. This is an example, and the idea being it was to create more spacious campuses with parkland and so on, and raised walkways, so students and staff from different disciplines could mix together. This is the university precinct in Manchester in reality. And this was actively encouraged. But the big problem is that, yes, this led to the remodeling of some university campuses in centres of cities. The new ones went on the edge of cities. They went to the suburbs, they went to out of town locations and became decoupled from centres. And this was actively encouraged by, as Michael Hebbard suggests here, that spaciousness in itself and a site unencumbered by industrial development were, it was argued, intrinsically advantageous for a university. Somehow university students would perambulate around parkland and share ideas, and this would inspire them in some way. So this is typical. This is the University of Essex, just built in the middle of nowhere, to be honest. No one here from University of Essex? Good. So they came less to, but the thing is, in reality, they came less about utopian visions of the campus and more what J.G. Ballard described in his urban dystopias around concrete jungles. And then more latterly, we've kind of seen this kind of marketization of the campus to make it appeal to international audiences. We see the same architecture. We see more corporate interests on campus. And it really then begins to raise the question, well, what is the university trying to do? This kind of, everywhere is trying to internationalize, but what does it bring to place? What does it bring to the city? Now, in recent times in the UK, and it's something that's perhaps overlooked, is that the universities have become place developers. They're starting to talk to local government, thinking about the strategic function of the campus, how it, to use this Richard Florida idea of knowledge hubs and and innovation centers, and how the campus can support cities to engage with the knowledge economy. And in 2019, across the UK, we had record spending on university campus development, over £3.5 billion. And you can see that there's huge impacts of this locally. These can be key drivers of economic development within cities. And in Manchester alone, we're looking at over £1 billion worth of investment into new campus development. The economic impact is clear, and what students spend as well locally on food and beer and events and so on. In concrete, it's another £1 billion to the local economy. So you can understand the challenges then. If we've got like massive online courses and university campuses disappear, so do these economic benefits. Just to give you an illustration, this is the main university campuses in Manchester. And this is Manchester Met, the University of Manchester, the Royal Northern College of Music. We've got a science park like they all have now. We have a big medical research centre, all clustered together with some cultural facilities as well. And this is at my own university, what's been happening. Sports is all under construction at the moment. School of Digital Arts, new accommodation, Sports Institute, new science faculty, new creative writing school, all up under construction at the moment. And added to this, and all these kind of these are private student accommodation developers like Downing, Unite, and Vita, who are now responsible for managing hundreds of university accommodation buildings, including some of the tallest buildings in Manchester, over 100 meters tall. And the universities themselves, campuses have changed from this, and this is what the Manchester Business School now looks like. Unfortunately, they could be anywhere. Lucas calls a new university campus, but it shares the qualities you might find in a shopping mall. What makes them any different from one another? All this is great, and then this happened, COVID. And we know this has been hugely disrupted across the UK. I'm not going to dwell. We can prove all this. This has all gone up in the UK. And then we've got longer term predictions about people fundamentally changing where they work, how they travel, and all these implications. And what we know from the university sector, this has been hugely disrupted to campus development, with some universities postponing or cancelling their investment programs. And such has been the financial impact on an income with lost rent, lost conference income, lost catering revenues. 13 universities in the UK may be insolvent. What we know, and this is our own analysis, we've looked at footfall, number of people visiting centres, and we've pulled out our university towns. And what this shows is that places with a university tend to be struggling compared to the normal town, the average town, and because students are off campus more often or going home, they're not in places driving these local economies. And this is really important going forward. And these are, I'm going to do two scenarios which I explain more in the blog. One is the shrinking in the virtual campus. And this is the spectre of these massive online courses. The idea that you actually don't need a campus to deliver higher education, to deliver degrees. And universities themselves, to become more financially stable, are beginning to shrink, cancelling their construction plans, announcing redundancies, and planning for a future without international students, for example. And do we need big lecture theatres? Do we need lots of halls of residence? And ultimately, do we need the campus at all? I'm not an advocate of this. I think this is the worst case scenario. But this is, as Ben Williamson says, we could be looking at a future globally, how we deliver schools without schools and degrees without campuses, and what that might mean for places is quite, particularly places like Tom's, which is very dependent on its higher education sector. Now, more positive news is we talk about the new normal. We've mentioned it today. Well, could the new normal, we don't have to go back to where we were. The new normal could be better. So I've come up with a plan. I've invented a phrase, campus urbanism, and this is what we should create in our universities. And this is some good news, and we've touched on this already. If students wanted an online education, why did so many millions of them across the world choose this year to go and study in a place? They want a campus education. They want face-to-face teaching. That is what they pay for in many cases. And as we conduct so much of our lives online now, that we lose, the real is important to us. And we know that under lockdown, being able to see friends and family, colleagues at Tom State University, it's better when we're together. We share ideas, we learn more. It's a better environment. And what students enjoy as well, it's not just about the education, it's about the wider experience, about being with others in a place, experiencing that place, the off-campus activities, which also make up, which you can never replicate online, ever. But the challenge is, and this is when I last spoke in Tom's, I talked about a lot of university campuses are actually a bit rubbish. They're not great places. They're not great destinations. They're very anodyne places. So this is my big idea, that let's forget about internationalization. Let's reconnect with our cities. Let's make the university an indispensable part of place. So there's no talk about getting rid of the campus to replace it with a virtual one. How does the university do that? Well, this is what I mean by campus urbanism. We can learn from wider placemaking practices. We can learn from ideas around urbanism, about recentering the university and embedding it in the everyday life of towns and cities. And so I've come up with a 5-point plan, and more of it is explained on the blog, but in short, we do great teaching. A robotic hologram will never replace, as we've seen already, the enthusiastic lecturer infusing a class in real time. That will never be replaced online, ever. But what we could do is, so we need to carry on doing that, but the university managers need to look at the campus, look at what they've created, places stripped of vitality and vibrancy. Let's activate the campus. Let's get local traders on site. Let's get markets on site. Let's have community events and festivals. Let's use the campus all year round. Even when the students aren't there, get the community involved. And ironically, this is what a lot of British universities used to do routinely decades ago. And let's embrace sustainable urbanism. What's really interesting about these new private housing developments, they're all in the centre of cities. We've seen a wider movement back into the centre of cities. Students want an urban life, a cosmopolitan experience. They want to be able to walk to campus. They want to be able to walk to the bars and nightclubs and shops. And this is sustainable. Let's reinforce it. If we're going to create bike lanes for students, then the community benefits as well. Let's embed the principles of sustainability, and for the staff as well. It'd be great to see universities offer staff incentives to live next to campus. We see that in some American universities. And let's create collaborative campuses. What we know through the practice from my dealing with local government and decision makers, top-down visions do not work. The vision for the campus should be worked out collaboratively with local people. And universities need to create the process to engage with communities in a meaningful way, so they jointly produce the new campus. And ultimately, manage the campus as it was a town centre. There are so many students in Manchester, 105,000. That is the size of a small city. Let's have a centre with shops and services, health, medical care, childcare. Let's make the campus a livable and sustainable place. And by doing so, this is how universities will embed themselves in place and make themselves indispensable, so no one will talk about getting rid of them. So a few final things to take away. I think too often we criticize universities. I think a lot of universities do a great engagement with places already, and let's build on that. But the reality is, for many institutions, we can't all internationalize. Maybe we now need to turn back and look at the local. And to be honest, a lot of British universities, that's what they were set up to do, was to raise the skills and education of the local population. And universities need to, as I say, need to find new ways to meaningfully engage. This is not just about consultation. Let's have communities, let's have local businesses managing the university as well. And ultimately, local political leaders need to work together and support the universities to achieve these visions. And ultimately, what the university needs to do is transform itself into an indispensable community asset. And as I say, you can read more about this on the blog. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.